negotiations. Thank you.
All right, and with that, this meeting's adjourned. We're on now to the blue agenda. So I'll call the meeting to order. This is the City Council of the City of Emeryville as successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency, our regular meeting. If we can have, let's go ahead and do roll call first.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Present.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember West.
Here.
Vice Mayor Atkin is excused. And and Mayor Asher.
Here. Okay, and with that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now is the time for public comments. Any public comments? Mr. Bukowski.
Hello. Just want to mention that under the freeway, there are a couple of lights out for the art fixtures. One's been out for a long time. Now there's another one out. And it's kind of dark and dingy. It'd be nice if we brighten that up a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay.
Move the consent calendar.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Seeing no objections, okay. We're on to item number 4, status report on the Oversight Board legal expenditures. I don't believe we've met, right? Okay. So nothing on number 5, and now that meeting is adjourned. Okay, moving on to the green agenda now. Okay. I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Emeryville City Council regular meeting. And we have a special order of the day. Chief James.
Mayor Asher, members of the council, it's my privilege tonight to introduce to you the newest member of the command staff of the Emeryville Police Department, Captain Dante Diatlevi. Dante came to Emeryville in 1996 at the beginning of the year. He came to us from the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. He got tired of counting spoons, so he wanted to do real police work. So he came on, and he's done an excellent job for us in all the positions that he's held. He's initially served in patrol. He's been a detective. He's been a patrol sergeant, and then most recently, he was in charge of our investigation section. Dante has a bachelor's degree from San Jose State University. He is married, has 5 children, 4 daughters and a son. So you can imagine the household there. And they're all, his youngest girls are just adorable. We went through a testing procedure, and Dante came out number 1. And we're very happy for that. We looked high and low for anything negative about Dante, and we could find nothing except that he's a Red Sox fan.
Oh.
So with that, I'd like to introduce Captain Dante Diatlevi.
Thank you. I know it's close to Christmas and everybody wants to get out and do some shopping, but I just have a quick story for you. Bear with me. So back when I first started in law enforcement, I was fortunate to be part of some pretty special teams, and we did some really nice, good stuff, good details and stuff like that. And on those teams, we had I had some supervisors that I thought were great leaders. And I always looked up to them, thought how cool it would be to be a leader like that. I thought that the leader was what ran the team. And so I thought, maybe someday I can be that. So let's fast forward about 24 years. I'm in the chief's office. Chief pulls me in there. The commander's in there. They said, Dante, I'd like for you to be acting captain. I said, sure, Chief, I can do that. And over the next 18 months as acting, and as these last few months that I've been the captain, I've learned what a great team can do for a leader, a great team being the city of Emeryville. And so I stand in front of you with gold all over me, and very proud, but humbled. See, I'm a product of my environment. I'm a product from a strong city council. I'm a product of a new city manager who is both dynamic and, by all initial accounts, going to lead the city into some great things. I'm a product of a chief of police that cares more about his people than he does himself. I'm a product of a chief of police who, when we're a person short for a search warrant, takes off his suit, puts on his uniform, and says, "Where do you need me?" And I said, "Chief, you're in the back." The only reason why I say that is because I know when we hit the door, he always ends up in the front. I'm a product of a commander who arrives at 0:30 and leaves when it's dark. A commander who doesn't care about who gets the credit as long as the job gets done. Product of a group of sergeants that lead our officers on the day-to-day operations. A product of a group of sergeants, or a group of officers, who protect this city despite being surrounded by the most violent city in the nation. A group of PSTs who do the very best job they can. I'm a product of a city where status quo is not good enough. I look forward to leading this city in a department where I and me are used seldomly, and us, we, and team are used often. I'll leave you with this. We're not going to be fearful of what history is going to say about us, because we're going to write it ourselves as a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dante.
Dante. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, thank you. Now we're on to item number 3. This is a time for public comments.
Good evening, Sharon Wilshire. I just wanted to thank everyone who came to the reception last week for the newly installed public art that was purchased from the Celebration of the Arts this year. Artist Mary Andrews has 3 beautiful, very delicate wire and paper drawings that can be seen just as you come into the reception area in the admin building looking up to the 2nd floor. And then Po Shan Leong's wooden sculpture, which is just to the, as you enter the council chambers from Old Town Hall. And we had a new addition this year, and it was really very exciting, and that was that the poet laureate, Sarah Kabrinsky, actually met prior to the reception, met with each of the artists in their studio, and she wrote the very thoughtful poems for each of the pieces and presented them that evening. So it was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Any other comments?
Hello again. I want to express the real need for a community calendar. I went over to the city school meeting and I listened to the student report and all those events that are happening, like tomorrow at Cliff Bar, where they're going to have the bands and a celebration, and nobody really knows about it. So I would like to urge you to have a community calendar that would be available out front here, out in front of the school, and on the webpage, and keep it up to date so people could follow what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. With that, we're on to number 4, the city manager's report. Nothing this evening? Okay. Now the consent calendar.
I'd like to pull 5.6 through 5.9 and suggest that we approve the rest of the consent calendar.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So 5.6.
Okay, on 5.6, on page 48, under the Finance Advisory Committee, we have the Stephen Cutter has resigned, as the labor rep, so we really need to get another rep in there. But on the vacant position, we do have an application from a highly qualified young man who lives and works in the city, and I would propose that we would appoint him tonight. You all have on the dais his
Yeah, this is Brian Cross.
recommendation.
Yeah.
So I would move to approve him for that committee.
I'd second that.
I'd support that.
Me too.
Okay.
Okay, so it's unanimous?
Yeah.
Great, okay. And then in 5.6, on page 52, under the ad hoc committees, I know we haven't appointed officially the EGR task force, but I believe that would be under an ad hoc committee?
This was thought to be a staff advisory committee as opposed to an advisory committee to the city council. So ordinarily, we don't list those in the roster, but if you wish to do something different, we can.
Well, that was not my intent. I thought the task force would be advisory to the city council, like the fire department task force was advisory to the city council.
Do we have any other staff advisory committees?
On an ad hoc basis, I would consider, like, for example, the skate park would have been something like that, in which we were not planning on taking the proposed list of members to the full council for a formal appointment process. I think you have gotten something in an information memo
Yeah.
that gave you what we were planning on doing and issuing the invitations this Friday so we could get it up and running. But if you wish to make it a formal advisory committee to the city council and have us bring back the membership for your appointment on January 21st, we can certainly do so.
How
So-
do you really feel about that? I don't want to see this task force dead-ended any place. I want the information that develops there brought forward to the council.
And what I appreciate, I think the attempt here is to streamline the process a little bit and to, instead of asking for applications,
Right.
actually inviting folks who have already been
right.
involved and shared opinions. It means we may miss some potential people we don't know about out there who might be excellent additions, but of course it'll be a public notice meeting, and I just want to be sure that the information of who is serving on that is public as well, so that we're not, doing anything behind closed doors. But I am in agreement that facilitating the kind of easier process to get that going, I think, is an excellent idea. I don't know whether that means we change the name of it from advisory to the council to advisory to the staff. Is that necessary?
If you wish to add it to the roster, we can certainly do so. I don't know if
Let's
that...
just add it to the roster as
Yes,
an
that will
advisory
take care
to the
of it.
council. We've moved far along on it, and I commend staff for how they jumped right on it. That was really good.
Yeah.
And then on page 81, this is item 5.8, under the Finance Advisory Committee, you have vacant the labor. Instead of the business member there, just put vacant labor. And then on page 84, again, putting down the task force for EGR. And then on item 5.9 on 91, on the Emeryville AC Transit Liaison Committee, we have as an alternate down here as me, and I believe that's Jennifer.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm an alternate. I think I'm a full member. There's 2 members.
Right,
I
right.
think there is a new roster for those regional advisory bodies on your dais, and I think that the changes
reflected.
have been made on that.
And then page
Not-
105, where you have the JPA for the Gilman playing fields, I'm on that, and Jack.
Right.
I think we've caught that on the copy that's on your dais.
It's hard to look on the copy and know what was changed.
Right, because it's not redlined, or
If you look at that first summary page, the changes that were done on December 3rd, different from what happened in 2013, are highlighted. And what I discovered, based upon your feedback that I got, was that a couple of those changes hadn't been made in the body of the of the roster. So the changes are captured in yellow on that first summary page.
So with that, I'd approve 5.6 through 5.9.
I have one other item on 5.6, and I had emailed about this earlier, so maybe it's already changed. This is on page 48 for the CDC's advisory committee that Sanaz had been appointed and approved, right? So she should be the additional person. Okay. Anything else on those?
Nope.
No?
Did we vote
we have a
on
second?
those?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So is that 5.6 and 5.9?
5.6 through 5.9.
Okay, we have no public hearings this evening, no policy items. We're on to administrative items. This is item 8.1, resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville accepting the Temescal Creek Park renovation project. Maurice.
Mayor Asher, members of the City Council. About a year ago, the City Council awarded a construction contract to S&H Construction for the renovation of Temescal Creek Park. And I'm happy to say that we're finally complete with the project. It took longer than anticipated, but we came in under budget by about $36,000, which is good news. This item would typically be on your consent calendar, but we thought it would be a good chance for us to discuss the trees in the park. We've had numerous discussions at our Public Works Committee meetings. We thought we'd bring this topic to the full City Council. Unfortunately, Ruth's not here, but we'll proceed as we are. This is a diagram that shows all the trees within the park site, and you saw this diagram when we awarded the contract. And the issue at the time was whether or not we should remove 3 large eucalyptus trees that are right near the play structures that went in. As we all remember, we have red-tailed hawks that are nesting in those trees. And at the time, when we were awarding the contract, we were deliberating on whether to remove the trees. And then we had a room full of people here wanting to preserve them, as well as people very concerned about the red-tailed hawks that nest there. And what came out of that meeting was a City Council recommendation to prune the trees and to put cables in the trees to essentially hold the large branches from falling into the play area and potentially hurting somebody. We did that work. It cost us about $24,000 to do that pruning work. In the summer months, when the park actually opened up, and it wasn't completed, but the park was open, we actually had one large branch fall onto the play area. In fact, I've got a picture of it right here in the debris box. And that branch damaged the play surfacing that we installed there. So with that, we brought an item to the Public Works Committee to talk about it. And the committee recommended that we bring this item to discussion with the City Council. Staff's still concerned about those trees, and we thought we should bring it to your attention and wanted to get direction from you as to whether or not you wanted to revisit our decision on what we did there, or whether or not, and if we did so, we would then go through a process of noticing the neighborhood again, of a discussion about the trees. If not, we could just continue as we are, but we wanted to hear back from council on this issue.
Jennifer?
So I'm curious if the amount that we came in under budget on this project, which is wonderful, could be considered a fund to try and figure out creatively. There were lots of ideas that were raised at that meeting, and a lot of it had to do with cost in terms of how much to how many measures to take basically to try and ensure safety, and no tree is ever 100% safe, but that doesn't mean we cut down all our trees. So I remember creative ideas of some kind of structure that could even protect an area. There were examples of a museum in St. Louis, I believe, that had such kind of art and also kind of protective measures. And so I'm curious if the council would be willing not to revisit cutting down the trees at this time, but using some of that additional fund that's left to look at other measures that could enhance our safety under the trees.
Mayor Asher, are you proposing that we bring this topic back and reconsider all aspects of it, say maybe in February?
No, I'm not. I'm actually asking if we could direct staff to look at additional measures, since there is actually a place for funding that, perhaps.
Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Kurt?
Maurice, let's go back and just revisit this. If I remember correctly, there was concern of about a number of 3 to 5 trees that were back in the corner by the play area. So we're not talking about, first off, removing all the trees, correct?
No, well, the
Okay,
trees
let's-
that, no, we wouldn't. At the time, the proposal was to take the large trees that are, I guess, on the north side of the park, north of the play area. I think they're numbered here, I can't read it very clearly, 13, 14, and 15?
I believe that was right.
All right, okay.
And then at that
About
time,
12. That's right
Potentially
over the
12,
play
too.
area.
Some of those trees look like double trees. I mean, they're all coming out of the same trunk.
and also, the intent at the time was to remove those trees and also to install or replant trees that were used to this environment, because these are eucalyptus trees that we're talking about removing, correct?
Yeah, these are eucalyptus, so the ground conditions would be potentially acidic, I guess. And so we would try to find a tree that would survive in that kind of ground condition.
And also, if I remember correctly, at that time, there was a lot of the residents in the area that said that no one was using that park, and I've been to that park recently, and there's a lot of young children using that park.
There's quite a bit of use.
So I think
Oh, yeah.
the whole nature of that park has changed, so
Right.
I think we need to bring this item back.
I would support that. Is
I have
that
a couple of
motion?
comments first.
I would make this form of motion.
Second.
Okay, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, how, did we have a lot of branches fall during the big windstorm?
We actually didn't. We had small branches, nothing big, a lot of leaves, but nothing major fell out, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
to me, I don't think that you can guarantee 100% that branches are going to fall. I mean, the eucalyptus were fine in the park, and yet trees along Adeline fell onto people's houses when I went out in the morning. So I don't think that we can find necessarily a tree that is going to be absolutely foolproof. The other concern I have about this, I do want to preserve the nesting space for the hawks. I do also want to make sure we're preserving a natural environment, especially with kind of the artificiality that we've introduced into that space. And that includes that rubberized surface, which I hate, the rubberized surface. I know that people think that this protects their child, as if children somehow bounce. I don't know, but to me, I think that they don't wear well, that eventually, the rain, you'll get puddles under them, and that it adds to this kind of plasticky feel, this really artificial feel. And we already have a lot of that going on in this park. And so I'm not interested in having the trees removed. I think that the cabling, if it worked during that windstorm, that's telling us that it performed pretty well. If we need to do some more cabling or pruning, I'd be really interested in doing that. And my kids play at this park. I agree. There are a lot more children at this park, and I want children to be in a more natural environment. And I'm also hoping that as we go forward and think about parks and play structures in town, that we start moving away from that plastic, rubberized model, because this could be a really beautiful area. And I think that the hawks, having that little piece of nature in the triangle is really nice. And so I'm not as worried about the trees, but would support some more measures to make sure that they're safe at this point.
So,
Do we want to have a vote?
yes.
Okay.
And if you have any sense of what it would cost to have an arborist perhaps go and check those trees every, quarterly or something, so that, again, we diminish the risk.
We have an arborist report that really discusses the safety of the trees, and I don't think their recommendations would change much. It's very difficult to predict which branch is going to fall. You can't really cable each one. And I will say, we can't say that the cables worked during the windstorm. Branches didn't break, so we were fortunate with that. And if they did break, hopefully they were ones that would be cabled. Right. And so I guess we could always pay to put more cables up, but you never know you know, there's only so much you can do, really, with those cables, or prune more.
Right.
So, and then, of course, we have other trees on the other side of the path that are on private property that I know Kurt was
They're
concerned
very
about.
dangerous. They need to be
So-
trimmed. Notice
But,
needs to be sent.
I mean, we
Which
could have
ones
an
are on
arborist
private
come by,
property?
but I think the arborist will continue to say that
It's-
they always pose a safety problem.
If I remember correctly, Jennifer, it's the tree number 9. It's right over the
Yeah.
path.
And that's
there's-
private property?
And there's
Yeah.
big snags there. And that tree is, to me, it looks like a very dangerous tree.
I don't know if this is an old picture, but there's a lot of trees that were taken out a few years ago, I think, on the far eastern end of the park, and this picture looks like it has all those trees. I'm not really clear.
Let's call the roll, please.
And I'm not sure if I understood exactly the motion. Is it to revisit, is it bring back a staff report on all the options, or was it
No,
a
I think
limited
Kurt
number
wanted
of
to
options?
revisit the entire thing, didn't he?
I want to revisit the entire thing. I want the neighbors to be noticed, and I want to come back and talk about the trees.
I'd also like the Parks and Rec Committee to weigh in on this as well, if we're going to take.
I would say that if you directed us to bring it back, we'd want to go to the Parks and Rec Committee as an agenda item and just follow through a whole process of publicly noticing it, and then,
How
of
about
course, the
bringing it
hearing
back
here.
in March? That'll give you enough time.
Well, let's take the roll call vote, right?
Do you want to hear from public?
Oh,
If there's anyone who'd like to speak on it?
anyone from the public want to speak on this item? No? Okay.
Sorry.
So this is to revisit.
The motion, as I understand it, is to revisit the decision regarding the trees in its entirety and
That's
to
correct.
bring it back to council at some, right now, unspecified date.
March, that'll give you time to
And I
notice
assume
it.
that means considering removal of the trees?
That's
And
correct.
that's the impetus, okay.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember West.
No.
And Vice Mayor Atkin is excused, and Mayor Asher.
No.
I think that was a mistake on your two ladies' part. I think when you have children playing underneath this area and underneath those trees, that it should really be looked at. So I just want to go and notice that I think you made a mistake. Thank you.
And I'd like to add to what Councilmember Brinkman says, all it takes is one tree limb and one dead child. This is a mistake. We should be revisiting this.
Okay, with that, is there anything else to report, Maurice,
That's it. Thank you.
on that item? Okay, on to 8.2.
That's my item. Good evening, Mayor Asher and members of the City Council. For your consideration tonight is a first reading of an ordinance which would amend the penalty provisions of Chapter 2, Title 1, and the planning regulations in Title 9 of the Emeryville Municipal Code. The planning regulations were adopted by the City Council in February of this year. When that ordinance was adopted, the ordinance did not amend Chapter 2 of Title 1, the penalty provisions, to make correct reference to the new planning regulations. And so staff has brought this ordinance before you to update the penalty provisions to make those proper cross-references to the planning regulations. In addition, staff is recommending that you update the penalty provisions to include the Director of Planning and Building as an officer who is authorized to issue citations for violations of the municipal code, in particular the planning regulations, which he is authorized to do in the planning regulations itself. So this provides internal consistency between the planning regulations and the penalty provisions. And then finally, staff has identified a number of technical revisions to Title IX, which it consists of typographical errors, correcting cross-references, that sort of thing. It's, we've had a shakedown cruise of the planning regs over the last few months, and mistakes like this often turn up, so we want to make sure we want to catch them. Speaking of typos, we realized that there is one in your packet. On page 4 of 16 of the ordinance, page 132 of the packet, section 9-1.301, titled Related Municipal Code Provisions. This is a laundry list of various code provisions which are cross-referenced in the planning code. There was a cut and paste error, and so starting with page 5 of 16 of the ordinance, titled Live Music, through page 6 and page 7 up to the provision reading signs on public sidewalks. That's a repetition of references that have already been captured. So we'd recommend that you strike that in the first reading that's adopted. Assuming that you adopt the first reading, when we bring the second reading back to you, we'll correct that provision. And so with that, staff would recommend that you introduce the ordinance after a motion to read by title only, that you take public testimony regarding the ordinance, and that the City Council adopt the first reading of the ordinance. Thank you.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Emeryville amending Chapter 2 of Title I of the Emeryville Municipal Code, penalty provisions, and amending Title 9 of the Emeryville Municipal Code, planning regulations.
Okay, thank you. Staff's pointed out to me that we neglected to vote on accepting the Temescal Creek Park renovation project. So we need to go back to 8.1. And let's go ahead and call the roll on that. To accept it?
8.1.
Yes.
So we need a motion and a second.
I'll move to accept the project.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who's the second? Was Mayor Asher?
Yes.
Roll call or just all in favor?
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would just like to add that there's an edge to the concrete as you enter the park on both the 53rd and the 47th Street side that would be good to take care of.
Okay, on to item 8.3.
8.2.
8.2.
Oh, 8.2, I'm sorry.
Public hearing for the
Oh, so we're opening a public hearing for this?
It's not a public hearing. I think
not.
it's just an administrative item, but
Right, so there is no public hearing, but if you would like to take testimony from the
Do
public.
we have comment from the public on 8.2? Yeah. Go ahead, Ken.
It would just be nice if it was some kind of a presentation which explained how that authority is going to be used and what's different from what exists right now, because I'm not sure what that means, if we've given a new level of authority, or I'm just not sure what it means. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd move the first reading.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
aye.
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 Okay. So now we're on to item 8.3.
Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8.3, resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville granting an annual card room license to the Oaks Card Club. Chief James.
Good evening. Before you tonight is a resolution granting the annual renewal of the Oaks Card Club's card room permit, and additionally, the approval of a new game called Zoback to the list of authorized
Ken?
games.
Have you played that game?
Yeah, have you played it, Ken?
Zuback.
I
us about
have
it.
no idea what it is. My staff has read the rules. The state has reviewed the game and approved the game for play in the state. I have no idea what it is.
Okay.
I have trouble with blackjack. Title 5, Section 5, or Title 5, Chapter 5 of the Municipal Code governs the card rooms and how they run and the requirement for the annual permit. It also requires that the police department do a investigation. We have performed such investigation, and we found nothing that would cause us to recommend that the permit be denied for the year. During the year, our officers visit the club regularly. They are there. They will go in once or twice a shift just to walk around and have a presence. Many of those what we call security checks are captured in our events as calls for service. And in the staff report, it talks about we had over 600 of those calls for service. almost 400 of those were security checks. An example of a security check that might not be an officer initiated is if we get a 911 call from a phone, and on a call back we have no answer, or they answer and say that it was a mistake. We still send an officer up. That's the type of call that would garner a security check that was not self-initiated. We did have a reduction in the number of crime reports that we took there, a minor reduction from 70 down to 60-something. For the most part, from my point of view, the Oaks is not a policing problem for us. It is a well-run organization. The management is very responsive to our requests of them when they come up, and we've had a good relationship with them over the years. For all those reasons, we recommend that the council approve the resolution and award the permit. I will say that this is probably the first time in the last 10 years that we are here before the year starts,
I noticed
so that they
that.
have a permit rather than in the first quarter of the year. A representative of the Oaks is here if you have any questions, and I'm open for any questions if you have those.
Okay, any questions or comments? Jennifer?
I have one quick question, which is there a limit to how many new authorized games you can have per year? Is it one, or do you have to take one off, or total?
No, there is no limit in the ordinance. The only regulation, well, the regulations over the games is that they are approved by resolution of council, that their rules are on record with the police department, and that they've been approved by the state for play. And
that means they have some level of skill involved. It's not just a chance.
yes, to be legal in California, it has to be denoted as a game of skill. If it's a game of chance, California will not authorize it for play in the card rooms.
Move the resolution.
I'll second that.
All those in- oh,
And I'd also like to say, it's great to have the Oaks Club in town. I know they have a lot of competition right now with all these other casinos, but it's good from the revenue standpoint and also from the safety and security standpoint for that part of town. So thank you for being there.
And there's another part to the Oaks Club. They are really strong and supportive of the, dollar-wise, financially. They support the Emory Education Fund, ECAP, the Senior Center, where they're a very good corporate citizen in town.
and the Child Development Center.
And the Child Development Center.
Yes,
So thank you.
And it's a significant chunk of our general fund budget.
sure is.
Can I note that I hope this was corrected, in the resolution itself, there is a typo referring to a game we approved a time ago. I hope that was caught. Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Is public comment, or?
any public comment? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yep. Okay, we're on to item 8.4. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville granting a waiver for Greenway access fee of $50,000 for the Broken Rack. Charlie?
Yes. Give me a second here to get the plans up on the screen. Mayor Asher and members of the City Council, you have before you a resolution to grant a waiver for the Greenway access fee of $50,000 for the Broken Rack project on Pelledu Street. Broken Rack is an existing pool hall and bar that's located at the public market, and they're planning to relocate to this building on Pelledu Street. On September 26th, the Planning Commission approved a conditional use permit for the use at this location. The applicant plans to apply for a sidewalk cafe permit to have outdoor seating along the Greenway once the city completes construction of this segment of the Greenway between Powell Street and Stanford Avenue. And that would involve the building having access to the Greenway. The planning regulations require a minor conditional use permit for access from any private property from a city park or greenway. The applicant has submitted an application for this minor CUP on November 25th. That application is now pending for staff level approval. The regulations also require that as a condition of gaining this access from a city park or greenway, that the owner of the private property make a one-time lump sum contribution to the citywide park fund in an amount equal to the value of the access as determined by an appraisal. Such an appraisal was done, and the value of the access was determined to be $50,000. The regulations also state that this fee can be waived or reduced if the property owner is required to construct or make improvements to the greenway, and or if the city council determines that the value of the access to the city outweighs the value of the access to the applicant. When the Planning Commission approved the use permit for the Broken Rack at this location, they included a condition that requires the applicant to pay the cost of construction and materials for an outdoor seating area in the greenway adjacent to their building, and this would be required whether or not they are allowed greenway access, whether or not they have outdoor seating. The cost of that, the materials and staff time, was subsequently estimated at $13,500. The applicant has paid the $13,500. They paid it on November 25th, and it has been deposited into this project account. The applicant is now requesting that the City Council waive the access fee of $50,000. As I said, the council can waive or reduce the fee if you determine that the benefit of the access to the city outweighs the benefit of the access to the applicant. I just want to draw your attention to this drawing, which should be on the screen before you. Just to orient you, north is to the left. That's where Powell Street is over here. Stanford Avenue is to the right. Pelledew Street is at the bottom here. That's the west, and then Hollis Street to the east is up at the top. This segment of the greenway goes from the corner of Powell and Hollis down to the corner of Stanford and Pelledew. It's all been designed. It should be constructed within the next year. The city's design includes this so-called outdoor living room area here with festoon lighting and so forth. The area that the Broken Rack has paid the $13,500 to install pavers is over on this side. It sort of mirrors where the living room is to be. That was part of the original city design. In the original city design, this area of outdoor pavers was just to be landscaping, just grass, and there were also included these these green screens that really were intended to hide the building because it's nothing but an ugly blank wall right now. So this access would allow for doors and windows in this area, and then the subsequent sidewalk cafe permit would allow them to have outdoor seating in this paved area. But as I said, regardless of whether this access is approved or whether the sidewalk cafe permit is approved, there still will be this paved area right here that they have already paid for. And of course, the Broken Rack building itself is right here. Staff believes that the finding can be made to waive the fee, and we recommend that the council consider waiving this $50,000 fee. The presence of a sidewalk cafe and outdoor seating along this stretch of the greenway, we believe, would promote an additional reason for residents to gather and spend time on the greenway. As you may know, when this section of the greenway was designed, there was a community input process, there were workshops, there was a lot of internal staff discussion as well as presentations to the council, and one of the questions that kept coming up is, well, we're designing this lovely little outdoor living room here, but why would anybody ever want to go there? And we were sort of hoping that something might come along that would encourage people to actually congregate here, because if there wasn't any active use in this area, there really isn't much reason to hang out here. We believe that this use provides that reason and is a benefit to the city, and therefore justifies waiving this fee. If the council wishes not to waive the full access fee, we would suggest that you at least consider reducing the $50,000 by the $13,500 that they've already paid, which would bring it down to $36,500. Alternatively, you might want to split the difference and waive a portion of it but not all of it, and therefore require them to pay, say, $25,000 or $15,000. But again, staff's recommendation is that the entire fee be waived. I'd just like to note that just prior to this meeting, I was reviewing the video of the joint Planning Commission City Council meeting that you had back in October of 2012 when you were reviewing the proposed new planning regulations. I'm sure you remember that was a very long meeting and a lot of issues were discussed. One of the issues that was discussed at some length was the proposed provision about access to private property from city greenways. And it was interesting to review that discussion. It was somewhat inconclusive at that point, but the general sentiment that I was hearing, well, first, the staff recommendation at that point was that it be a major conditional use permit for access to the greenway, meaning Planning Commission approval, and that a fee be required. And there was no provision for waiving it, just there would be a fee based on the value of the access, and it would have to go to the Planning Commission for approval. The sentiment of your discussion with the Planning Commission was that you really wanted to encourage this access. And you talked about maybe not even requiring a permit at all, or maybe not even requiring a fee at all. And subsequently, what ended up happening at staff's discussion was that it was reduced from a major conditional use permit to a minor conditional use permit, and a provision was added that the fee could be waived if the council felt that it was of more value to the city than to the applicant. And so that's what ultimately got adopted into the code. And in retrospect, and upon reviewing that discussion, I personally feel that this is exactly the kind of use that the Commission and Council had in mind when you were talking about a use that would be a benefit to the city that would justify waiving the fee. And it was sort of with that in mind, which was why staff feels that this is in sync with at least what you're thinking appeared to be at that time, the kind of thing that would justify waiving the access fee. So that is our recommendation, and that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant, Marilyn Boucher, is also here and would like to address you.
Okay. Hey, Charlie, I just have a quick question. The applicant's not the owner of the property.
That's correct.
That's right, okay. And it's a 10-year lease, if I remember correctly? Okay.
Nora, you said you had a question?
Yeah, Charlie, I have a question. I happen to agree with you. I think this is a wonderful use, and it'll just really make that whole segment of the Greenway come alive. But am I to understand that this public right-of-way here, it will be under the Sidewalk Cafe ordinance, which means that every year we have an opportunity to review whether it's being maintained in a proper fashion, whether the use has changed, the ownership has changed. What I'm looking for here, it's a wonderful use, but I'm looking for protection for the city and the people in the city if circumstances should change, if it's not maintained, or if there's any kind of police action required. We want to have the ability to go in there and remove that permit. So do we have that?
Well, let me clarify. This is a little confusing. There's actually 3 separate permits we're talking about here. One is the use permit for the broken rack, which has already been approved by the Planning Commission, which is for the use in the building. Right. The second thing is the minor conditional use permit that's approved at a staff level for the access from the building to the greenway, and that has no time limit on it. And the Sidewalk Cafe permit is a third permit. That's a third and separate permit that would allow the outdoor seating on the greenway, and that does get renewed every year, and that can be just not renewed if it's not being done properly. But there's one other thing I want to mention. In the provisions in the code about the minor use permit for the access, there is a section that talks about the kind of conditions of approval that can be put on that permit, and one that is explicitly stated is that it can be limited to only certain uses. So for example, in this case, it could be stipulated in this minor use permit that this permit for access to the greenway only applies to the broken rack or a similar use.
What I'm looking for.
Yes, we could,
That's what I'm looking
we could
for.
certainly apply that, put that condition on this minor conditional use
And the city would
permit.
have the ability, would the outdoor cafe or thing take precedent over the minor conditional use?
Well, no, not exactly. They're sort of, they're kind of mutually exclusive. One allows them to have the doors onto the greenway. It just allows them to have the doors and the windows that access onto the greenway. That's what the minor use permit does. Then the sidewalk cafe permit is for the stuff that they actually put out on the greenway.
Okay.
And that's the one that has to be renewed every year.
Right.
Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Well, I guess-
Council? Should we hear from the applicant?
Yeah.
First, let's hear from the applicant.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Boucher, and this is my husband, Wayne. We are the owners of the Broken Rack, which has been in business at the public market for 15 years. We're a pool hall, a neighborhood sports bar and grill, and we're a venue for corporate and personal private events. We've lasted this long. We made it through the dot-com burst, for those of you who still remember that, this most recent major recession, and we've seen a lot of businesses come and go, as in go out of business at the market while we've stayed. We think we've survived because we offer services that the community wants and needs, and also because we have a very loyal customer base. We are a business that thrives on regulars. They're both pool players and people who live and work in the neighborhood. We're that place where people know your name. Our staff knows a lot of our customers know our staff, our customers get to know each other. And I think that character of that business, along with the fact that we will offer Greenway users several options, recreation, food, drink, but that sort of feeling about the business, which we intend to carry over to the new location, will even make us more appropriate for building that kind of community spot that I think everyone wants the Greenway to be. You know, Emeryville has a lot of big development and big business, and that's a good thing. And the money that brings in obviously contributes to making this the attractive, well-run city that it is, where people want to live and where people want to do business. But we feel, and we hope you agree with us, that in the long run, the community is going to be healthier and more vital if small, independent, locally owned businesses like ours can still find a place here. We feel like this ordinance probably had in mind those big business when it was conceived or drafted. We're not that. We're the proverbial mom and pop. We are asking you to waive this fee because, frankly, we just can't pay it. I don't want you to think that we thought we could make this move on the cheap. We realized that we were looking at, to have enough space, we were looking at warehouse office spaces, that we would have to build a commercial kitchen and bar, and that would be an expensive undertaking. What we did not anticipate, nor did the owner of this building anticipate when we first negotiated this arrangement, was that there would be a significant seismic retrofit involved. And the owner of the building had options. They could, the retrofit is triggered by the fact that we're a change of use. They could have looked for another tenant, which would not have been a change of use, and not have done the retrofit. In order to induce them to stay with us, and because we really felt that this was a great match of business and location, we had to agree to make a sizable, a major contribution to the cost of that seismic retrofit. That maxed out our budget. You know, we do not have room for that seismic retrofit, the cost of our tenants' improvements, and another assessment fee, whether it's $50,000, $36,500, $25,000, or even $15,000. We really feel that, you know, as Mr. Bryant stated, we've already paid $17,000 for these, $13,500 for the improvements and staff time. It would seem really cruel not to let us build doors out there after they've taken our money. Also, we've paid for the cost of the appraisal, so waiving the fee, I want to emphasize, would not leave the city in the red on this project in any way. It would, if we have to withdraw our request for access because of the cost, it would, as Mr. Bryant mentioned, leave one side of the greenway a long, tall, unbroken cement brick wall, and the other side would be the backs of buildings. I'm sure that greenways are not intended to be like, have people in them like water in a pipe that will keep them walled off from the surroundings. I think we're really suited to bring people, where people will bring to the greenway. The people who want to use the greenway will find things to do there. And conversely, our pool players, who I'm sure many have, the greenway is not on their radar whatsoever. If it's there and they're there, they're going to be pulled out into the greenway, enjoy it, appreciate it, and it will increase use in that way. So I think that granting us our request to waive the fee and allowing our access to go ahead would be a win-win situation, to use the overused phrase. It will make the greenway better, certainly help us make our business stronger. So we thank you for considering our request.
Thank
and
you.
if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, I guess I can relate to your situation, because you're making improvements, and those improvements will benefit somebody else because you don't own the building. So I guess I can understand that. I don't know if there's a way that we can postpone, if the property is sold, that do something 10 years down when your lease is renegotiated with the owner, because I can, as I said, I appreciate you putting $50,000 up for this, and really, you are going to get a direct benefit, but the owner is going to get a larger portion of that benefit of that improvement. So in some ways I don't feel it's fair for you to pay for that $50,000, but I don't know how to structure that deal.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea, Charlie?
Well, if we include a condition, as I suggested, in the minor conditional use permit, that this access only applies to the broken rack or a similar use.
Okay.
Right.
Then in the future, if the building transforms into some other use, they won't have greenway access. They'll have to come back and request it again.
I would support that, yeah.
And then they'd have to, pay whatever the fee at that time was determined to be.
I mean, that would, I assume, take a new appraisal, and the factors on the appraisal would be
In
completely
the future,
different.
yeah, for
Right,
whoever
but-
that future use is, right?
But then that, again, we could have another issue with another business moving in and them absorbing the costs, right? They would be the applicant yet again, because this is one of my concerns. I'm looking at how much you're putting forward for improvements. It's significant, right? And then the fees that we're asking for, that benefit, yes, it will benefit your business, but that's a long-term benefit for that property owner, right? And I'm trying to figure out here how to balance those things, because for me, that's something that goes with the property, right? That makes that property that much more attractive. That makes it desirable for businesses to be in there. It can probably allow them to charge a certain kind of rent, and so that's where I'm kind of wondering. While I would love to have the broken rack there. I think it's a great spot for it. I also think that the property owner is getting a great deal. What a wonderful thing to have the city be your neighbor behind you and maintain the property behind you, right? And give you access to public space. So, I mean, we could hear from other council members or also from the
Let's
public.
hear from the rest of the public, and
Okay.
then let's have a discussion.
I just want to make one quick point. I'm not sure if this is on point, but at this point, to the building owner, it really doesn't matter whether we get access or not, because the terms of the lease are set.
Right. It's negotiated already.
It's negotiated already. So we agree it wouldn't be fair for us to pay $50,000. That's why we're asking you to waive the fee. If you waive the fee, then we end up paying the $17,000 we've already paid for those costs. So just to...
Yeah. Yeah. Ken?
I would certainly support waiving the fee, but I really question, the idea of even granting access or not. Why wouldn't you consider it another street or another sidewalk? Suppose somebody didn't pay the fee, so you wouldn't have access there? This doesn't make any sense to me. And then an appraisal process? How do you evaluate whether it's more valuable to them or to us? I think that's a tough one there. This doesn't even make any sense. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
I definitely agree that they should be able to use the space. And maybe if you could make the cafe, which sits out on the public space, be for just the business. And if the business is ever sold or closed, that permit for that business to use that space is gone. And then it would have to go back to the city for whoever the new tenant would be. And my business is right on the northern section, the part that's uncompleted right now. I've been waiting for it to be done. I talked to Maurice before the meeting, and I just want Godspeed for the Greenway to be built in entirety or in parts, because it will be significant for the city and especially my business from where we are every day.
What's your business?
You at Honor Bar?
No, I'm in Ron Silverman's building right next to, my parking is right next to the spot where the dirt just went in.
Is that the monthly building?
Yeah, it used to be the monthly building. I'm right next to the monthly. I have all the space between the monthly and about 10,000 square feet right there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Further comment, questions from council?
Mayor Asher.
Nora?
I think you all have a wonderful concept, and I believe the city, I think you're going to be a catalyst in that section of the Greenway, and that you'll bring more to the city than a $50,000 fee will bring. So I absolutely am in favor of a waiver, especially since Charlie has figured out a very clever way. If you guys leave, then the permission leaves, and whoever would come in again is going to have to face the same thing. But for right now, I truly believe you'll be a catalyst and bring much more to the city than the $50,000 would. So I would move that we have waive the fee of the $50,000, because Charlie has solved the problem that you and I really worried about, Jack, and that is that this would be in perpetuity. Now it's limited to the actions of the Broken Rack, and they understand that the sidewalk cafe ordinance means, or the sidewalk cafe rules mean that you have to maintain the space. There can't be any police activity, on and on and on. We have control here, and I think this is an opportunity for a council that has many times spoken up in favor of small business. Here's mom and pop. They're here asking for a break, and this is a way for us to do it.
No, I agree. I think this makes...
Second?
It's a second.
Thank you.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and I can't wait till you open up. But I also think it's also important that we are waiving it, but yet we aren't waiving it, because there's going to be other activity on the Greenway that we might not want to waive. So this gives us a good way. Thank you, Charlie, for figuring that one out.
Jennifer, do you have
And
anything?
thank you for being in Emeryville.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Yes.
I agree with the sentiments that were expressed earlier by both Kurt and Jack about that I think the long-term benefits are really to the property owner more than to the tenant. And I'm just concerned with the way perhaps we constructed this access fee, that it's not paid on an ongoing basis by a property owner. And I'm concerned if, why is it that we're negotiating this with the use rather than the property, since it seems like the access is really more associated with the property. Can you answer that?
I mean, a conditional use permit can be applied for by a tenant or a property owner, so it's kind of up to them to sort that out.
Yeah.
And typically, if a property owner is required to pay some fee or make some improvement, they usually pass the cost of that along to their tenant anyway. So it kind of is, you know, that's sort of between them. It's kind of a moot for us as to who actually applies for it. I would point out that the whole rationale for this code section in the first place was to bring a little equity to the fact that there were some major property developers that paid for the construction of the greenway. And it was mostly Pulte homes in the area north of Powell Street. They paid for, I think, 4 different sections of the greenway through 4 different projects. And there's other properties that front on the greenway that haven't paid anything for construction of the greenway. And so the idea was to try to get something back from those people for, if they should want access to the greenway, they should have to pay something for it. And Pulte's contribution was a one-time thing.
Okay.
It was, you know, one time we built the greenway, and it's there, and we're done.
Right, they don't
So-
maintain it, for example. We do
Right.
that.
So the concept was that anybody else who comes along and wants access has to proportionally pay a one-time thing, just like the original builders did. And you don't just collect it every year, you just get it once, and then you're done.
But a builder presumably built a building and then got quite a significant benefit from that, and in the cost or selling the business or the building or by renting it. To me, someone with you know, a entertainment establishment, it's like it's little by little. It's not all at one time. It's not a huge investment. Well, it sounds like there's quite an investment at this point, but that 50,000, if you could stretch that over, and I don't know what time period exactly, there's a sense of that access continually contributing to the business in a way that's a little bit different to me than building a building.
Yes, it's
Perhaps.
true, but I mean, one could also, you can draw an analogy with the 2 restaurants that are along the greenway just across the street on the north west corner of Powell and Hollis. You have the, I forget what it's called, Cafe 22.
E22.
And E22, and then
Bureau.
the Bureau 510. Neither of those paid an access fee to the greenway because those projects built the greenway. The Elevation 22 that the E22 Cafe is in built that part of the greenway, and the greenway was then expanded, and the plaza was built by Wareham when they built the Emery Station Greenway building. Those 2 restaurants are tenants of those buildings. They don't have to pay an access fee because their landlords basically built that part of the greenway. So,
But it costs a lot more than 50,000, and they get a big benefit from having it
Right.
there. Yeah.
right, I mean, there's no perfect solution.
Right.
We're just trying to bring a little bit of equity here.
Right. And then another question is, you mentioned that there are really 3 permits and that the Sidewalk Cafe permit is one, and I think staff told me that it was about $100 to apply for a Sidewalk Cafe.
Yeah, it's real cheap.
Yeah.
The intent is to encourage sidewalk cafes.
Great. And how often is that renewed or?
Every year.
Annually, okay. And the conditions that you mentioned are written into the Sidewalk Cafe permit, or that's written into the minor CUP access to the greenway?
No, it's for the minor CUP for the access to the greenway. And what it actually says is, it says that in approving a conditional use permit for access, conditions, such conditions may be designated as deemed necessary to protect the public health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Such conditions may include but are not limited to the following, and then it lists some examples of the kinds of conditions you might put on such a permit. So it doesn't say you have to, but these are in the code as things you might include. And one is restricting the uses that may gain access from the city park, greenway, or other property. So we could restrict this particular use permit to this particular use. Then when this use goes away, that access is not approved anymore.
Can you restrict it even to an entity or just to the use itself? I mean, we've seen, you know, Kitty's and Prize Fighter, very different, I think under the same use but different establishments.
That I'm not clear on. It's typically, generally speaking, a use is a use.
Okay.
A use is how it's categorized, and if a for example, the use permit that was granted by the Planning Commission for the Broken Rack. If the Broken Rack should go out of business, God forbid, or decide to sell to some other entity, and they change the name to something else, but they run their operation exactly the same way, then it's the same use.
Okay.
If they want to make changes to it, I mean, even if it's the same use classification, the use permit also includes a site plan that shows exactly where how the layout is, so it might require modification of the use permit if they're going to change anything. But typically, I don't know in this case if we could restrict it to a particular business, but normally it's to the use as defined in the code, and the city attorney is nodding his head.
Okay. Okay. So this access fee is in perpetuity. There's no period of time at which it would be reconsidered.
Right.
Except for this change of use.
Except if the use goes away, then
And if we put those in the
this condition on there, then the access would go away.
Okay. I think, and in the map that you showed us, the sidewalk cafe area is all public right-of-way. Because I don't know where the property line is, but I assume it's at the building?
Yes, yes, it's right here. It's technically not public right-of-way. It's city-owned property. In fact, if it were public right-of-way, they wouldn't need a permit to access it, because you can always have access on a public right-of-way. You don't need special permission for that. But you do need special permission if it's city property that's not a public right-of-way. So it's a legal nuance.
Okay, but we treat it as public
Well,
right-of-way.
the
We treat it
sidewalk
as a park.
the sidewalk cafe provisions apply both to public rights-of-way and to city greenways and parks. So,
Okay. And a question maybe for the applicant is, will there be alcohol served in this area outside? Or can alcohol go out the door? I don't know.
it could under the sidewalk cafe provisions.
Right. If you're serving alcohol, there's a requirement that you have a barrier around the area where you're serving that's at least 38 inches or something high. And also those barriers have to be movable so that when we are not open for business, we have to move we will have to move the barriers back so that the public then again has access to the whole area. And we have to move the barriers back, but we have to leave our furnishings out so that the public can use those furnishings at any time they want.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that. You mentioned that you have the cost of tenant improvements and the seismic retrofit and this access fee as well. I'm just curious. I think it said in the appraisal that the property itself was like 1.5 million perhaps a year ago. I think it was purchased, which 50,000 kind of pales in comparison. But I'm, just for ballpark figures, how much are you spending on the tenant improvements, or what portion of that would be considered in this access fee? Is it?
The whole deal
Yeah.
together is going to be, we're getting up to the $600,000 range for this whole project. Soft costs, construction costs, and miscellaneous costs. So
It's pretty significant, it sounds like. Okay, with that, I guess I'm certainly in favor of significantly reducing. I recognize the $17,000 with the cost of the appraisal and the $13,500 for the improvements. I guess I have kind of on principle the idea and precedent that we could charge a nominal token access fee, just because I think it's important to recognize the significant benefits to both the property and to the business, but by having the public access. So I guess I'll put in place just a substitute motion that we reduce the additional fee to $1,000.
I'd second that and call the question.
And if we could include that condition of tying it to the use as well.
We'll be sure to include that in the minor conditional use permit conditions.
And I also just want to recognize the $17,000 contribution as offsetting basically that access fee. That when I say $1,000, it's really, I think, added together $18,000 just in terms of the cost.
Call a question.
I think she's getting ready to.
Councilmember Brinkman,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Atkin is excused, and Mayor Asher.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
We look forward
Thank
to
you.
having,
We'll see you at the Broken Rack and on the Greenway.
We'll be there at the opening.
Yeah.
an honor bar someday. We'll
It's
be
right
really
there.
happy to have there.
Oh, it's so nice to think of that, yes. Okay, 8.5, the Transportation Committee report.
Before you tonight are 3 items for approval. May I suggest that you pull 8.5.1 and keep it for the next Transportation Committee meeting? When I went out to survey the businesses, as the committee had requested, I realized that this was not a red zone that was being removed and being changed. It was actually a zone that we created for Kitty's that restricted parking during Kitty's normal hours of operation, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., and that it is open parking the rest of the hours, instead of just a red zone that would be removed and replaced with a green zone. So with that information, I would suggest that it be brought back to the Transportation Committee for further action.
Okay.
The other action tonight is approve placing a blue disabled zone in front of 3609 Adeline Street. The committee received the application. The notices were made as per our blue zone procedures, and there was no objections that came from it, and the committee is recommending approval of the zone.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then the last item is the committee has agreed to cancel the Christmas Eve day meeting of the Transportation Committee on the 24th.
I bet Nora's going to vote no on this one.
Moved it at the Transportation Committee.
She did?
I assume all other committees are meeting though that week, right?
Every committee's meeting except for this one.
Nora's letting it go.
Nora got
Okay.
soft. Oh, my God.
Yes,
Why
she
is it
did.
that the council weighs in on that anyway? That's what I want to know.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second that. We need
All those in
one.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now on to 8.6. This item has been revised. It was on our dais. Consideration of proposed 2014 calendar of city council regular meetings and city holidays.
Mayor Asher, could we continue this until January? Because the issue is the Jewish holidays, and we don't have Member Atkin with us. And I would like her to be able to comment on this
I'd second that.
and see what she has to say.
Has staff received any comments from her on this?
No, I am a little concerned that we do need to post some kind of
Yeah.
calendar of events, and you could pass something and amend it. I don't know if that's what the city attorney would recommend.
Or could we pass something for the first half of the year, which aren't, it's not even,
Why don't we just say we're going to meet in January, and then we will have a calendar from January going forward. We only have one council meeting in January. Let's not complicate things.
Usually we list all the regular scheduled meetings.
What say you, Mike?
You can decide tonight that you'll have your regular scheduled city council meeting on the first and on the 21st of January, and then at that time establish a regular city council meeting for the
There you
remainder of
go.
the year.
I'd support that.
I support that.
Okay.
Good catch.
but staff can continue planning for other council meetings just in case we decide to pass it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a motion, a second for that?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Nothing under city as housing successor, communications and reports, department heads. Charlie?
Yes, the Planning Commission had their regular meeting last Thursday, December 12th. There were 3 study session items on that agenda, so no public hearings, no decisions were made, nothing appealable to the City Council. The First was a study session on the proposed residential project at 6701 Shellmount Street, the so-called Nady site. That will be coming back to the commission sometime in 2014 for a decision, and that decision will then be appealable to the city council after that. They also held a study session on the proposed final development plan for the next phase, Phase 1B as it's being called, of the Marketplace redevelopment project. Again, that will come back to the commission for a decision sometime in 2014, and that will be appealable to the city council at that time. And finally, the commission held a study session on the Emeryville, Berkeley, Oakland Transit Study, the so-called EBOTS study. That report or similar report will be coming to you for discussion at your next meeting on January 21st. It will not be a study session, however, it will be a brief administrative item.
Oh, wait a minute,
So-
hold the phone here. You're going to bring the EBOT on to January 21st?
Well, this is just a report on where we are at this point. It's just,
How long is it going to be, Charlie?
the item at the Planning Commission took about 20 minutes or so.
My point.
You want,
I understand the January 21st agenda is going to be quite packed. Any chance we could move EBOT to the first meeting in Feb?
well, the problem is the EBOT is on a very tight schedule, and the conditions of the grant require that it be, whole study be completed by early 2015, and if anything slips, then sort of everything slips. I can promise to keep it to 10 minutes if
There you
all-
go.
There we go.
if
We
you
like
wanna
that.
limit your discussion.
I'll ask a lot of questions and
We'll
drag it
all
out.
be
I'm
There
sure.
you go.
Okay. I'll tell
Charlie,
Diana.
how late did the Planning Commission go?
I think it was 11:08.
Oh, boy.
Or
My
something
point.
like that. Well, they had two other
All
study
EBOT.
sessions that took 2 hours each. They tend to talk a lot more than you do.
Okay. With that, council members?
No,
Oh,
we're-
I just want to make one comment about the police department had a absolutely remarkable presentation and training on active shooters. And given what happened last week in Montana, this was a presentation for the members of the Security Coalition. That's the heads of all the private security people, the East Bay Bridge and Bay Street, et cetera. So I'm thinking that it might be a good thing if perhaps people in the public buildings, public hall, City Hall, should take advantage of that. And I certainly hope that the school district would take advantage of this training offered by the police department. It's outstanding. And I noticed it in the incident that happened in Montana, that the police who responded said that their job was made much easier because all of the teachers and the children knew what to do. They had been trained what to do in the instance of something like this, so.
I know that they do training like that at the rec department, and I'm not sure if the school district does it as well, but the children that attend rec.
Well, it's something we might want to bring up at the city school committee, that it's on offer by our own police department, and it's outstanding.
And we can do that. I did talk to the chief about this morning, and so we'll follow up with the school district as well.
And I have to take my head off to the chief, because I was at the event on Friday, Dante and the two sergeants. It was well turned out. Everybody it was exciting. We should all be thankful that we live in Emeryville with the chief and with the police department staff that we have here. So
Hear, hear.
thank you very much, Chief.
Charlie, did you want to add something?
Yes, speaking of the chief, my thanks to him for reminding me about an announcement I was supposed to make that I forgot to make.
Okay.
Which is that the developers of the proposed hotel at Bay Street will be holding a community meeting, and that is scheduled for Tuesday, January 7th at 6:30 p.m., and it will be, I believe, at the community room that is at Bay Street. So
What
that's,
time?
6:30 p.m., Tuesday, January 7th, at the community room at the Bay Street Center.
What's the name of the hotel?
Hyatt Place, I believe. Hyatt Place Hotel.
Boring.
And what information do we have about that that could be shared? Community?
I don't remember the exact room count. It's about a 5-story hotel. It's the site of the hotel is, of course, the unbuilt portion of Bay Street, which is just north of Christie Avenue, kind of north of the Gap. There will be a study session on the design at the Planning Commission's January meeting, and so that, of course, all the information about it will be in the Planning Commission's packet at that time, and I'm sure they'll be showing the plans at this community meeting as well.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I have one thing that I want to mention. I attended the city's holiday tree lighting ceremony shortly after I was appointed mayor, so I got to turn the lights on the tree. Oh, what an honor. But I want to thank staff. I want to thank them for their hard work, and the police department for their escort down Park Street. We had performances by the Child Development Center, by the Emory High Band, and I just want to let everyone know how wonderful it was to have a parade. It was a really short parade, but it was great. As we were walking, people were coming out of the businesses and standing by the windows wondering, what is happening outside? And it was really great, and so I hope that is an ongoing tradition for us. You know, I'm from a small town, and so I have been in many parades in my lifetime, but it was really wonderful for the children and families to do that. So thank you to everyone who helped with that. Okay, with that, we have our regular advisory vacancies, and now, anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Good going, Jack.
Well.